But let's just start with Microsoft. And like, to me, the first thing is like, what is Xbox gaming? Like, what is Xbox Game Studios? Like, it's Microsoft. And this is like one of my just things that drives me crazy is for a company like Microsoft who owns the largest game in the world, they never talk about it. It's like Voldemort of Microsoft. Like, we just don't mention it.
When I think about Microsoft, right, I think about, again, getting out of hardware, focusing purely on the software, the user interface, all that stuff, and how do you make Game Pass shine? I guess as a distribution network, but more so your community.
Tools are not entertainment experiences. Creators use tools to create great entertainment. The Windows is not a consumer brand in the way that a Mac is. That's why Mac is so powerful. That's why the Apple brand is so powerful. It's a consumer brand. Consumers have a relationship with Mac. Nobody has a relationship with Windows or Office. It's a tool that's primarily enterprise. Follow Sam Altman on Twitter. It's a comedy show. I think he's really upset at Anthropic too for their Super Bowl commercial.
What up, everyone? Welcome back to Player Driven Live. It is February 5th. If you're new here, this is a show where we break down the business of gaming, player experience, and the forces that are shaping the industry in real time. We're not just talking about the headlines, we're talking about what actually matters behind it. And this week, the giants are moving. We've got big tech earnings. We've got generative AI rattling markets. We've got a console strategy at a crossroads, and we got one of the biggest media leadership changes we've seen in years. In about an hour, 4 companies managed to give us a pretty clean snapshot of where games and entertainment is heading. Microsoft dropped their earnings, and suddenly cloud and AI are back at the center of the conversation, not just for enterprises, but for gaming and for infrastructure and how studios fund production and scale live services. Google showed off Genie 3. The market reaction was energetic. When engine companies and creator platforms move an AI announcement, it's not just hype. It's investors trying to price out what game creation might look like in the next few years. So we're going to break this all down. I'm here with my always energetic guest who knows much more about this than I do. Colin, how are you, man?
I'm good. You might know more about Disney than I do. I don't know about that yet, but like, yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Just another busy week. I spent a lot of time reading through Microsoft's earnings, asking a lot of questions about it, thinking a lot about the Genie reaction, both on the broad markets, which I thought was silly, and then the other stuff in the industry. So I'm excited to get into it because I think I have thoughts on all of this stuff.
I think you're always full of thoughts. That's the beautiful part of all this. And most importantly, next week, Colin and I will be at DICE. So if anyone's in Vegas and wants to check out this event that we're throwing, I've been talking to Colin through all of this from when I first had this inkling of an idea in Vegas, and I was really nervous that we were going to look like Michael Scott on The Office with no one in there. But now our RSVPs has hit 50, and now the idea is like, oh no, is this going to be big enough? At least the room. So Colin, you pumped about this?
Yeah, I've never actually been to DICE myself. So I'm more excited to finally go to this industry event that I've actually, it's been cursed to me. So I'm like, I finally feel like there's no curses, knocking on lots of wood, that I'll actually be able to attend this year. So I'm excited to see what it's all about, from the ARIA lobby / coffee shop / anything else in the area, right? But it seems like it's super well attended. And in terms of the event, yeah, it's super cool that a lot of people are interested in meeting up and touching grass and that sort of stuff. So I, you know more about the venue than I do. I'm just like, I'm gonna be there, man. I'll be there anyway. So excited to show up, have conversations, talk about all things in and around DICE, and kind of the nervousness that exists in the industry, because I feel like we're kind of still, and I think rightfully still seeing in this era of uncertainty that people are trying to get through. You see all the layoffs already starting to happen this year. It sucks. You see like people's concern that, is this going to get worse? What's going on here? And I think part of that shock then comes too is like when Microsoft announces that they miss the goal by like, they miss earnings by 9%. A lot of that coming from devices, but not all of it. A lot of it coming from software too, and games. So I think that's kind of probably rattled the industry a little bit. Like, what does this mean if what they're doing is not succeeding for them?
You're talking specifically on Microsoft, and you're
Yeah, Microsoft. Yeah, I mean Nintendo on the other hand, fuck, gangbuster earnings, good for them. Like we can throw a parade for them, but we can save that to the end.
we'll save it for the end because I know it's your second favorite topic after this first one we're tackling, which is Microsoft. But give us your breakdown on it. Tell us what you think about their earnings
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
So yeah, so I'm writing my so I think this is becoming the hotspot, right? Just preview my past notes, but I actually almost got done through the whole thing this week. I'm like looking at an almost complete version, so I'm quite happy with myself. But like I think a lot of things stuck out to me. And so the first thing when I saw this and I started thinking about it more deeply, and I'm thinking about AI more deeply, which I'll get to in a minute. I think the AI story very much is the Microsoft story, obviously, right? Their earnings, their stock went down after earnings, and if you read kind of the analysts on the street, as it were, a lot of them will say they weren't able to generate the revenue they were expecting to, even though they generated a ton of profit. It wasn't quite the profit they're expecting to. Microsoft calls out one of the biggest concerns is their ability to access enough supply to meet demand. Like they're basically leaving demand on the table because they can't access enough supply to build out their chips and their data centers as fast as they need to, right? So it's just like money being left on the table, basically. And so that was like the larger Microsoft earnings, but like diving into the gaming side, obviously they missed. And so my first reaction is, we knew it. Mind Game Data was right. Like we knew that the Call of Duty was going to miss. We knew Outer Worlds 2 was going to miss. We knew Ninja Gaiden 4 was going to miss. And if you have like your 3 games coming out in Q3, Q4 last year, they're all going to miss, then your earnings are going to miss, right? And we talked about it last episode, but like, Bobby Kotick somehow went out there and said they missed their Call of Duty goal by 60% over last year, pretty much kind of in the same ballpark of what our number would suggest. So the Call of Duty thing is an open question, and the Game Pass is an open question, and what are they trying to do? But like, you know what? Let's not dwell on Game Pass. I think I've talked to you enough about that, Greg. I think you're as educated as you need to be on what I think about Game Pass. Look at our data. It's Minecraft. And this is like one of my just things that drives me crazy. For a company like Microsoft, who owns the largest game in the world, they never talk about it. It's like Voldemort of Microsoft. Like we just don't mention it. And you have to like really dig deep into just any sort of metrics that come out of it. Like at a Minecraft like annual thing, they announced that they announced a partnership with so part of why this game is so big, and it makes up 7% of all gaming in our tool. Like it's easily the biggest game right there with Roblox. Like they kind of trade places, right? But um and then within the Microsoft portfolio, like Xbox Game Studios, like if you look at that, they own like 7.5% of the market. So 7%, so 90+% of the entire portfolio of Xbox, not including Activision, not including Blizzard, not including Bethesda, ZeniMax, but just the Xbox holdings, is Minecraft and everything else. So it's like that would include Outer Worlds, that would include Avowed, that would include Ninja Gaiden 4, that would include Forza. Like everything else makes up a minuscule amount of market share, and it's all just basically Minecraft. And yet they never talk about Minecraft. And you go back, and this is like where I think Microsoft has ended up from a gaming strategy. And this started like when they just at some point realized they couldn't make games, I guess, or like make games that people want to make in house. Like they at some point in the early 2010s, they kind of went into the let's just buy. And so I'm going to read a quote from Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, that he said in 2020. You can't wake up one day and say, let's build a game studio. The idea of having content is so we can reach larger communities. And they kind of go through these quotes every time they do an acquisition. And the first major acquisition was they bought Mojang Minecraft in like 2014. That was the first like mega big acquisition that they bought, right? And then that was the first in the long line of like they would buy the thing, they grow, they plateau, and then to grow more, they would buy another gaming company. So after they bought Mojang, they then would go buy Bethesda, ZeniMax, right? In like 2021, I think is when the deal closed. And then fast forward a few years after that, because growth went up in our tool, like the market share grew up a little bit, but it then plateaus. Then they go buy Activision Blizzard, and it goes up. And then if you look at the gaming earnings, which I'm sorry, I should probably just rattle off some of those numbers. I find it really fascinating. So give me a second. And so they bought Mojang for 2.5 billion in 2014. They bought ZeniMax for 7.5 billion in 2020, and they bought Activision Blizzard King for 68.7 billion in 2022. Right. So the amount of money they're putting into buying new assets increasingly grows, right? It gets more expensive to buy new things. So I want to just make sure I call that out in my numbers. But in essence, like, can't find the revenues off hand. And apologies, yeah. So in pre Bethesda purchasing, their gaming revenues was capped at 11.6 billion, right? Post Bethesda acquisition, that number jumped to 15.4 billion, right? So they moved the needle up a little bit. Then when ABK kind of became a thing, they were around that number, like, after ABK arrived, they jumped up again to 21.5 billion of an annual in gaming revenue with 9 months, and then that when they have full calendar year underneath them, that number jumped up to 23.5 billion. So like every piece of growth of Microsoft gaming has occurred via just buying the thing, like just buying the next thing, buying the next thing. So they're on this like wheel of like constantly like acquiring new companies. But, and it's a big but, and this is my larger concern, is like when you look at the overarching revenue of Microsoft holistically, it's literally like less than 10% of their revenue. They make so much more money from Azure, from Office 360 software, from literally every other business unit at a higher margin. And I think that is just the crux of the challenge that the gaming side of the business when the Microsoft has, is that they are an opportunity cost that's not on the right side of the opportunity cost, where they continue to invest in the thing, they continue to see a little bit of growth, but in the number for any other gaming company would be massive in billions. Like, oh my gosh, we're growing revenue, we're becoming a bigger company. And yet for Microsoft, it's like a drop in the bucket. It's negligible to the earnings. And like when the street looks at their stock and it goes up and goes down, has nothing to do with gaming. Like missing gaming earnings doesn't matter. Missing the AI capex spending and being able to fulfill demand at the clip that the street wants you to, that's what kills their stock. That's what kills their stock, right? So that's the place I think they find themselves in, which is it's a bad place to be, honestly. If you're trying to be a gaming company, like how can you operate at 30% margin? So anyways, that's my table setting. I want your feedback, but I do want to shout out Chris String, right? And his like amazing, like I think was it Chris String, or let me make sure I get it right. Oh no, it was Bloomberg, who had the amazing piece where they actually interviewed the people from Obsidian, and they were pretty transparent about like their misses last year and the kind of pressure they're under with the margins. They didn't deny the 30% margin being an actual thing. It was an amazing piece. So if you haven't read that, go read that piece. It's a great story, great interview. Couldn't recommend it more. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you said so much there, right? It's how do you tackle it? And Justin's asking a question in chat, right? Asking about the Sony results, and I think we didn't really dig into those, right? But we could probably compare Microsoft to Sony, whereas again, Microsoft is just a bigger company, right? In reality, Microsoft could probably buy the Sony portion of gaming if they really wanted to, but that would kill a lot of things. But I think to your point, like Microsoft's realizing why are we playing this game? There's not enough margin in this game, at least right now, right? I mean, the truth is, when it comes to transmedia at the end of the day, I know they talked about the Call of Duty show, right? Like maybe that changes things. Maybe all of a sudden you see profit coming in. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud and it's not connected, right? Sony had an amazing quarter, right? And they had, I think, can we relate any of that to distribution of things like K-pop Demon Hunters, right? Like they tore up with that. How much of it comes to the gaming side of the world? Their gaming is also now going to PC, right? And I think when I think about Microsoft, right, I think about, again, getting out of hardware, focusing purely on the software, the user interface, all that stuff. And how do you make Game Pass shine? Not as a I guess as a distribution network, but more so your community. You have a whole bunch of users and players that are gamers here, right? I think there's value in that. That's not just gamer money. It's, hey, I know all about Greg or Colin because he's a gamer and I know what his likes are. And I know he has an Office 365 subscription. I know he uses Copilot. I know it builds you the better profile of who this individual is. So it's almost like an investment in the long term. Hey, who are these users? Who are my users? How do I get in front of them? And how do I get them to play this stuff? I truly think there's a bigger fight here, which is Windows versus Mac, right? And Mac for years has been winning. I think they've been stomping the wind. Like people want a Mac. If you talk to people, they want a MacBook. And I think Microsoft, their moneymaker is PC, and it's all that stuff on the computer that people are doing. Right? How do you get people to buy into Windows ecosystem again?
Yeah, actually, you're giving me so shout out to this amazing video I watched that I stumbled upon in my social feeds because I guess the algorithm knows the kind of content I like to crush. And it was this guy named Brad Sams who I had not known. He's an analyst that covers Microsoft extensively. He has like a YouTube channel and does stuff, right? He had a great video on this, and like he was also calling out basically the same thing. And I think when I game theory out where I see gaming and my personal opinion, like you're gonna see a lot of parallels to like how the entertainment companies are like basically judged on the cable assets they have, where they're like, why are you in this business? Get rid of these cable assets. Distraction, distraction, distraction. Even though they spit off profit, it's not the future, right? Because that's what the street always judges you on. It's like, what are you doing to hedge against the future? And I think like maybe the parallel is not quite the same, but I look at Microsoft too, and it's like, hey, are you going to go spend, if you spend $68 billion to buy Activision Blizzard King and you need to buy something else to grow more, what else is on the market? Can you even buy it? And what is even the price point? So if you're going to spend 120 billion to buy the next thing, whatever that might be, look around. Like even if you can get that through the regulatory like hoopla, which would be a distraction for the leadership of Microsoft, like couldn't that 120 billion be spent on AI infrastructure, on just anything else that would do more for us in our corporate valuation versus just like continually chasing the gaming thing. But I think why they keep gaming around in part is because it's the only consumer brand they have. Like nobody the Windows is not a consumer brand in the way that a Mac is. That's why Mac is so powerful. That's why the Apple brand is so powerful. It's a consumer brand. Consumers have a relationship with Mac. Nobody has a relationship with Windows or Office. It's a tool that's primarily enterprise, right? Um, so I think the one brand they do have that's consumer facing is the gaming part of their portfolio, right? That's a consumer brand, and that's probably what's keep the heat shield on it for as long as it's had. But like, it's not the end of the day. It's not gonna be the CEO of Microsoft forever. So like, the kind of the future CEO of Microsoft, and people are playing that game right now. Could it be? I think her name is Amy Hood, right? Like a CFO. Like if she took over, would she or any other financial, like more finance person, they would probably look at gaming and be like, got it, get out of this, right? Like this is negligible to our business. And just want to read you, like Microsoft made 81.3 billion in revenue in fiscal quarter last year for Q4. Just a staggering amount of money. And gaming makes 20 billion a year. Like a year.
Yeah.
It does it's so just, and